Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's happening? What's happening? This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect on this beautiful Friday. Happy Juma to everybody out there. Juma Mubarak to all my brothers and sisters out there. Okay. So today I'm going on a subject to deal about African cultural astronomy. And the reason why I'm inspired by this is because there's been a lot of talk about how African people don't get into the science field like that, or this whole concept about Western science versus everybody else's science, and cultural interpretation and all of that. So I said, well, okay, I happened to just come across this information. I was just looking online, and I typed up black cosmologist, right? So I'm looking for the black cosmologist, and I happen to see this name, Dr. Jarita Holbrook. So I said, okay, let me see what this person is about. So Dr. Jarita Holbrook is an astronomer and also studies African cultural astronomy. So I said, oh, this is very interesting. This is something I can put out there. So for the people that want to know about the African cultural concept of science, ethnoscience, and all of that stuff, I think this is the great subject for you all. So I'm going to try to make it quick as possible. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Okay. So let's get into who is Dr. Holbrook is, and we're going to look at some of the studies that has been taking place. All right. Okay. So I try to gather up as much information as I possibly could. Okay. So as you can see, this is a picture of Dr. Jarita Holbrook. All right. So let's read the biography. So Holbrook is an expert on both African indigenous astronomy and the culture of astronomy itself. These days, as you can see, they identify her as they. So I guess the person goes by a non-binary pronoun or something like that. So I'm just going by how the article is written. Okay. It says these days they describe themselves as more of a social science. Specifically, they spoke about finding their place in anthropology of science. I found that anthropologists were very warm and open, and that what you embodied was important for anthropology. The fact that I was an African American woman who had traveled around the world, that actually had experienced living in Africa and living in the Pacific before, was all very relevant to my career as an anthropologist going forward. My identity was not left at the door. My previous life experiences were not left at the door. It was integrated into my success as an anthropologist of science. Okay. All right. So peace. Hey, everybody. Peace to brother Darren. Yes, it's very interesting, brother Darren. Peace to sister Julanda. How you doing, sister? All right. So it says astronomy and culture. So cultural astronomy is an interdisciplinary field concerned with the many different ways of perceiving and conceptualizing objects in the sky. It's a lesser known branch of astronomy, and Dr. Holbrook couldn't recall the first time they had become aware of it. I can't even remember the first time I heard about cultural astronomy, but it wasn't clear how you did it or if it was a path that was valuable. There were no classes, no degree programs, or anything like that. So this person also goes on to say, but basically, when I was a graduate student, the racism against me was so bad that I was like, this is ridiculous. They act like Black people are not interested in the sky and have never looked up. And so I was finishing my PhD. I was becoming angrier and angrier with astronomers, and I totally did not trust them with my career. So Dr. Holbrook further elaborated that this is a very common feeling amongst people of color in racist conditions, which are not confined to academia or astronomy specifically. In particular, people of color can never be sure whether critique of their work stem from the quality of the work itself or simply from the racism of the critic. So I wanted to become an expert on African Indigenous astronomy because I knew that there's a lot of information about Africans and to their relation to the sky. It's just nobody is promoting it or talking about it. All right, so I'm on astrobites.org. That's the website I'm on. It goes down further. It says, continuing, Dr. Holbrook spoke about the allure, but also the difficulty of pursuing a career in cultural astronomy. So cultural astronomy is like the dark side of the force. It's infinitely seductive, but it is not a way to make a career. Despite the difficulty, Dr. Holbrook has been incredibly successful at it. I do amazingly fun things today. At the end of the month, I'm giving an event online for free, which is 2 Eyes Seeing African Cultural Astronomy and NASA Moon to Mars. All right. So right here it says the activity is to rename a few NASA things with African names. Wait a minute. Let me read that part again. The activity to rename a few NASA things with African names. Okay, so let me stop right there. Let me say something. So, as you can see, this individual studied cultural astronomy. But let the people tell you there is no such thing as cultural practices in science. What? Let the people tell you there's such thing as ethnoscience. What? Here it is, a person that was an anthropologist that eventually became an astronomer, right? That studied these fields and discovered cultural astronomy. And as you can see in the paragraph, right in the paragraph says the activity is to rename a few NASA things with African names. So if we try to rename something with African names, here somebody come along and say, oh, you being pseudo. That's pseudo. Well, how? How's that pseudo? It's the same thing. It's just a different name to call it for. You don't have to use the same European concept or the European name to identify something. You can use it in your own interpretation and be able to still understand it. So when I was promoting the brother's book, if you guys have not checked him out, African Creation Energy, right? He go by Brother Ace. What he do, he's pretty much doing what this lady is what this person is talking about, okay, in this article. He's pretty much doing that in his books. So what that brother was doing is bring about interpretation of science, scientific knowledge. That's what the brother was doing in his book. So if you guys have not checked out African Creation Energy, please go on his page. Go on African Creation Energy page. He does a very great job at breaking down scientific knowledge in the colloquial sense, using African names or using personification or anthropomorphism. Look him up. He does a great job. So if anybody really want to get into the field of science or get into the field of STEM and trying to gain some type of knowledge and get a better interpretation, understanding, go on his page. Like, he does a good job with that. So yeah, it may seem like it's pseudo, but it's not necessarily pseudo if you actually read it. It's just interpretation. So the reading audience can understand science a little bit better. So there's always going to be personification in science. There's going to always be anthropomorphism. You know what I'm saying? There's going to always be the interpretation. I mean, it's always there. It always has been there. Okay. Hey, Sean, how you doing? I see you on Brother Kofi's TV. I see you on Brother Kofi TV. Yeah, shout out to you. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank y'all for coming through. Thank y'all for coming through for real. Thank y'all. I really appreciate that a lot. All right, so let me just go ahead and continue with the article, okay? I'm just going to scroll down just a little bit. So right here it says the culture of astronomy these days. When Dr. Holbrook studies astronomer, it is there. Marie, I cannot say this person's last name, so I'm not even gonna try it. So it's Marie Corey Fellowship funded project. So Astro Moves, primarily based on interviews with based astronomers, the Astronomer Moves project is shedding light on how constantly having to move for employment in the field impacts astronomers of different genders unequally. Okay, so Dr. Holbrook themselves have lived and worked in various parts of the world, including U.S., Fiji, South Africa, and most recently Scotland. Speaking about their experience of living abroad, Dr. Holbrook described a large shift in social dynamics. In South Africa, I really got to experience white privilege for the first time. Walk into the room, they hear my American accent and assume I'm smart. Nobody tries to nobody tries to like shoot me down or shut me up because I have an American accent and I have all these fancy American degrees. All right. So let me just go ahead and skip a little bit because I don't want to spend too much time on this article. All right, so it says, in their work on survival strategy for African American astronomer and astrophysicists. Let me see if I could click on this link right here. Okay, so as you can see, here's the article. If you guys want to download the article by Jarita Holbrook, it's called Survival Strategies for African American Astronomers and Astrophysicists. Okay, this came out on April the 1st of 2012. All right, so you can download the PDF and all of that. Okay, cool. You can download the PDF. So this came from Cornell University. Let's see. All right, so here's the PDF right here. So you can download it. It's called Survival Strategy for African American Astronomers and Astrophysics. All right, so let me just go back to the article real quick. Tonight, Chav is going in on the Dogon. I'm gonna try to tune in to that. I would like to see that because I want to tune in. I really want to tune into that. Okay, let me see. See what else I can find on this article. Yeah, so anyways, also it says Dr. Holbrook identified good mentoring as a key ingredient to counteract the toxicity of racist spaces in astronomy. The nice thing is if there's a student of color who got a good mentor, they never come knocking on my door. So I know that good mentors are out there because a whole bunch of people of color in astrophysics haven't come and knocked on my door. All right. Those that do knock are warned about persistent and the same issue that exists in broader American culture within American astronomy. You need to have a sword in one hand and a spear in the other, and then you go in strong because you know you're not going to not experience racism and sexism. Okay. So as I said before, that's her biography, and as you can see, you know, she identified as them, as they. Okay, she used what they call the non-binary pronouns. That's what she used. So as you can see, just from this person's account, they study anthropology and also astronomy. So this person is showing you that you can study cultural astronomy, but you have to research on it. It's not really talked about as a popular field of study. Not even anthropology. Anthropology is not a very popular field of study like that either. You know what I'm saying? But it's there. So as you can see, there is an account on that. Okay. Let me just go ahead and again, shout out to the chat. Thanks to the chat for coming through. I thank y'all. I really appreciate that. If you want to know more information about this individual, you can also look on the WikiOne page. Okay, I have WikiOne, which is basically Wikipedia. That's not just Wikipedia, but it's just more like, you know, it's more visible. Let's just put it like that. So, okay, so as you can see, you can find out more information here on Wikipedia if you want to learn more about this individual. All right, and then also make sure you look at the references at the bottom of the page. Okay, look at the references at the bottom of the page. All right, so it's right here. The information is there. All right, so that way nobody can say, oh, you're just using Wikipedia and you're not using anything else. Well, I use other sources to back it up. Okay, I don't have no reason just to use Wikipedia. All right. I just use Wikipedia because it's a lot of people favorite go-to website. You know what I mean? So people use Wikipedia for the wrong reason and not really use it for the right reason. So you can find stuff on there. Just look at the bottom. You got to look at the references at the bottom. References are very important in this case. Okay. All right. All right. So now here's some works that this person has done. Also, there's a documentary that's out. Let's go to this little documentary. If you guys are interested, this documentary is called Black Suns and Astrophysics Adventure. Okay, so it was something that this individual have done with Dr. Hakim Alusei. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Alusei, and also Dr. Efranzi Sterling. So Dr. Efranzi Sterling works for NASA, whereas Dr. Hakim Alusei is a astrophysicist. So I'm familiar with Dr. Hakim because I've seen his interviews with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He also has a book out from I think it's called From the Street to Quantum Physics or something like that. I think that's the name of the book he got out. It's called From the Streets to Quantum. So you know what? Let me look up the title of the book while I'm at it. Let me look up Dr. Hakim. Let me look his book up. Okay, so the name of the book is called A Quantum Life, My Unlikely Journey from the Streets to the Stars. Okay. All right, so I would advise you guys to check out his book. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and pull it up for y'all. Okay, so y'all can see the title. All right, so, oops. Okay, it's called A Quantum Life, My Unlikely Journey from the Streets to the Stars. Okay. All right, so that's the name of the book. Let's see something. Brother Sean put cultural anthropology and cultural astronomy. Yes, correct. But a lot of people don't know, like I was saying before, a lot of people don't know about these subject fields. You know what I'm saying? Or if they do know about it, they often get ignored because it's like, oh, they're not really like a big time subject. They're not as big as biology or genetics or chemistry or anything like that. Those are like kind of like soft science type of thing. That's how people will perceive them. I think what you are doing is a big deal. This subject educate us on how to properly assess its history. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to do the best that I can. Like I said, this is my first time knowing about this person and knowing about anthropology, cultural astronomy. This is my first time knowing about cultural astronomy myself. So I just happened, it was just by surprise that I just came across. I was like, oh, well, snap, I can just share this information here since everybody's talking about African cultural science and interpretation and scientific knowledge. I said, oh, yeah. I can share this. Shoot, somebody can look this up. I mean, I know somebody need it. And somebody put, it's a subfield usually take a hit but are necessary for the overall field. Exactly, they do. They take a hit because they're not looked at as being as valuable or significant or as important compared to the main subjects or the main fields, you know. But they do correlate, you know what I'm saying? They tied in together. But you know how that goes. You know how that goes. But anyways, let's see. Hold on. I'm trying to find the article that I downloaded. Dang. Hold on. Give me a few moments, you guys. Oh my God, what am I doing here? All All right, so let me just look. Let's go over some of her. Go over some of this person's material. Okay, so some of the material that this individual has written so far. So the first one I'm gonna go over is the African Cultural Astronomy Project. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see the screen. It says the African Cultural Astronomy Project by, as you can see, the title Johnson O. Yorama and Jarita C. Holbrook. Okay. Now you can see the abstract. Well, let's just go over a little bit about the abstract. I ain't gonna go too much into it. All right. So it says indigenous, and endogenous, traditional or cultural and astronomy focuses on the many ways that people and cultures interact with celestial bodies. In most part of Africa, there is very little or no awareness about modern astronomy. However, like ancient people everywhere, Africans wonder at the sky and struggle to make sense of it. The African Cultural Astronomy Project aims to unearth the body of traditional knowledge of astronomy possessed by peoples of different ethnic groups in Africa and to consider scientific interpretation when appropriate for cosmogonies and ancient astronomical practices. All right. So it says, regardless of scientific validity, every scientist can relate to the process of making observation and creating theoretical mechanism for explaining what is observed. Now, let me read that again. Hold on. Let me read that again. Hold on. Let me read that one more time because that part is very important. I wish I could highlight it. But it says, regardless of scientific validity, okay? Regardless of scientific validity, every scientist can relate to the process of making observations and creating theoretical mechanisms for explaining what is observed. So where science say that, oh, it doesn't sound very valid, at the end of the day, it's about the interpretation of what is observed. Okay, the interpretation is what's more important. All right, the lateral part of this. Lateral means the creative part. Okay, because at the end of the day, you can still get the same result. It's just how you interpret it. That's all it is. All right. So I just want to put that part out there. Okay. So now let's go down to the introduction. So I said the introduction, cultural astronomy has been said to be the use of astronomical knowledge, beliefs, or theories to inspire, inform, or influence social forms and ideologies or any aspect of human behavior. Cultural astronomy also includes modern discipline of ethno-astronomy and archaeoastronomy. Like ancient people everywhere, Africans wondered at the sky and struggled to make sense of it. African cultural astronomy is rich with mythic figures, cosmology, and cosmogony. If I'm saying it right, cosmogony, I mispronounced it, sorry. Divination methods that utilize observation of celestial bodies, and many other sky-related beliefs and traditions. African cultural astronomy is entwined with religious belief and practices, agriculture, artistic efforts, folklore, and social hierarchies. Okay? The sky is also utilized for practical purposes in Africa. Observations are useful for navigating at night, timekeeping, and establishing an accurate calendar and noting menses and fertility cycles. The Libamba bone, what's the bone called? The bone they found in South Africa? The bone they found in South Africa, right, with the little tally marks on there. It was said to be that bone was used as a way to not only keep up with calculation of time, but also keep up with the woman's menstrual cycle, etc. But let's continue. Africa is the world's second largest and second most populous continent after Asia, at about 30.2 million square kilometers, including adjacent islands, and it covers 6% of the Earth's total surface area and 20.4% of the total land area. With about 922 million people as of 2005 and 61 territories, it accounts for about 14.2% of the world's human population. It is believed that well over 1,000 languages are spoken by different ethnic nationalities in Africa. Presently, nearly all the communities employ European languages, particularly French, Portuguese, and English, which are often used in schools and in governments as a second language. The cosmogony mythologies of many ethnic nationalities of Africa show that astronomy among the science has the deepest cultural roots, okay? And then it stops off at one of the strategy for trying. So, I'm sorry, okay, Ashango Bone. Thank you, Jehudi, for correcting me. Ashango Bone. Oh, my goodness. That's the Ashango Bone. Correct, Jehudi. Thank you, Ashango Bone. Yeah. So, okay, so let's see. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. So again, this comes from the articles that adsabs.harvard.edu. Okay. So that's all it's going to give. It's just going to give like the abstract and introduction. Okay. All right. So let's see what else we can find on here. So it's another issue that was written by this individual. So please do not sell me on that. Oh, well, scientists, they just deal with the science. They don't deal with things from the cultural standpoint. You know what I'm saying? They don't deal with the cultural stuff. That's totally out the league. That's not scientific. That goes to show that you're not really studying science if you believe that they don't deal with cultural interpretation and cultural practices. Okay. As somebody mentioned, I believe Brother Sean mentioned this on his channel. He said that what did he mention? He says culture is the driving force of evolution. Culture is the driving force of evolution. So you can have biology, and this is a fact. You can look up an article that mentioned about biology and which one is what's the name of the hold on, let me slow down. I'm tripping. Okay, what's the name of this article? It's called Is Evolution a drive? No, I mean, is culture a driving force for evolution? I think that's the name of it. That's the name of the article. Okay, so it goes in to talk about which one is the driving force of evolution, biology or culture. All right, so both of them are the driving force of evolution, but it's culture that keeps evolution going, not just biology, because you can have biology, but if you don't have culture incorporate into the biology, then you're not going to really have evolution. Okay, so biology and culture goes hand in hand, mean that you can't have one without the other. You got to have the biology, but you also got to have culture as well to keep the evolution going. All right. Biology is deferred to culture. Okay. Right. So exactly. Yeah, you got to have culture. Because culture brings that, it brings it brings consistency. Okay. It brings consistency. It keeps things regulating and going. So when we talk about human evolution, especially, we got to have culture. We don't have a culture and we just got biology, then it's gonna be totally unorthodox. It's gonna be totally discombobulated. I mean, we're just gonna be all over the place. So you got to have some form of structure that is there. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have some form of practice. You know what I'm saying? You just can't You can't just exist and not do anything. I mean, that's impossible. And Sean put, they need cultural context to answer the questions biology can't. Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because only thing biologists can tell you is about genetics. They can only tell you about DNA. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing they can really tell you. They can tell you about cells and tissue. They can't really tell you a lot about culture. So now that's when you got to have somebody who's an anthropologist that can come in and study both biology and the cultural aspect. This is why I recommend people, if you're really gonna get into science, study anthropology. Study anthropology, because that's when you study humanity as a whole. You study humanity from a biological standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, from an archaeological standpoint, and from a linguistic standpoint. So when you study all those four things in combination, that makes it a lot better. It's a lot easier to study it that way than just trying to just solely focus on biology and not understand the cultural practice behind it. You know what I'm saying? That's just my suggestion. Everybody else, it's different. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, that's on you. But I would advise people to study anthropology. I think anthropology would be the best way. Chavis put multidisciplinary approach. Absolutely. You're right. Multidisciplinary approach. Yes. That's all it is. Because you have that thorough knowledge from all different fields. You know what I'm saying? Not just one particular field. Yeah. Yes, sir. That's why I try to study in, what I'm saying? That's why I try to get into is anthropology. Because it's just much easier to study that way. You know what I'm saying? It's much easier. It makes a lot more sense to me. Because why would I just want to just study just biology and not study the culture? You know what I'm saying? And then that's when you start learning about ecosystem. That's when you start ecology, which is dealing with how organisms have a relationship with their environment. So when you study ecology, it shows that brings the biology and the culture together. Ecology, because you're studying the relationship that organisms have with their environment. And we are organisms, so we're going to have some type of relationship with our environment in some shape or form. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that part out there. Let me just go ahead and continue, because I'll be running my mouth all night. Let me go ahead and continue. All right. Let's go to this next one. Okay, so as you can see, this is from UC Santa Barbara, Journal of Astronomy and Culture, right? Okay, so it came out in 2016. Okay. As you can see, it's from escholarship.org. The title is Astronomy, Indigenous Knowledge and Interpretation, Advanced Studies of Cultural Astronomy in South Africa. All right. So again, it was written by Jarita Holbrook. Okay. And it was peer reviewed. All right. Now, as you can see, that's the abstract, etc. I tend to skip the abstract because I want to go straight to the introduction, but I'll read a little bit about the abstract. The International Society for Archaeoastronomy and Astronomy and Culture, Oxford X conference came to Africa for the first time in 2014. Oxford X exposed South African students and researchers to cultural astronomy, data collection, and analysis method, as well as to potential mentors to further the goal of advancing the field. Okay. All right. So cultural astronomy studies in South Africa, however, remains in a nascent stage, which said for the entire field, but especially when it comes to the studies of Africa. All right. So let's go down to the introduction. So it says cultural astronomy is the study of humans and their relationship with the sky. Okay. These relationships include practical things such as timekeeping, weather prediction, seasonal calendars for agricultural activities, and navigation. Artistic inspiration such as songs, poems, myths, stories, paintings, sculptures, etc., and metaphysical beliefs such as astrology, the location of Christian heaven, and other religious connection, as well as human relationship regarding the scientific studies of astronomy, right? And astrophysics, space sciences, atmospheric science, planetary science. All right. So it says, including is the study of the history and evolution of all these and more within regions, cultures, and subgroups. All right. A formal definition of cultural astronomy was put forth by Nicholas Companion. All right. Cultural astronomy is the study of the use of astronomical knowledge, beliefs, and theories to inspire, inform, or influence social forms and ideology or any aspect of human behavior. Cultural astronomy also includes the modern discipline of ethnoastronomy and archaeoastronomy. Now, the one thing that people get into nowadays and still studying to it is astrology. Now, astrology is considered as pseudoscientific, okay? Because now you got astronomy, because astronomy came out of school of astrology. All right. So at that once upon a time in the ancient time period, astrology was used, and that's why you got all these horoscopes, all these different things about, people's zodiac sign and stuff like that, because that's what they used during the ancient time to understand the cosmos and the planets and things like that. Now, science don't really necessarily use astrology. They don't use it anymore. They use astronomy and astrophysics, because those things could give better explanation about stars and their calculation and the universe, etc. All right. But from a cultural standpoint, astrology is being used from a cultural standpoint. Okay. So we sit here, we talk about, oh, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Scorpio, I'm a Capricorn, this, that, and the other. What's the meaning of being a Virgo? What's the meaning of being a Capricorn, etc., etc. Now, it's just for basically entertainment purposes, you know what I'm saying? But, as you can see, you can put that under if you was to put that under a category, it will fall under the category of cultural astronomy. Okay, it will fall under the category of cultural astronomy because it was from a cultural standpoint. All right. Okay, so again, astrology was around before astronomy, and astronomy came out the school of astrology. All right, just like chemistry came out of the school of alchemy. All right, so alchemy is what gave birth to chemistry. Astrology is what gave birth to astronomy. All right, so boom. All right, peace, Centavo. Thank you for coming through. Peace. All right. Let's see. Let's go down to where it says, okay, archaeoastronomy is defined by dictionary.com as the branch of archaeology that deals with the apparent use by prehistoric civilization of astronomical techniques to establish the season or the cycle of the year, especially as evidence in the construction of megaliths and other ritual structures. Okay, that's the definition of archaeoastronomy. Okay, deals with the archaeology, right, and the apparent use by prehistoric civilization, okay, of astronomical techniques to establish the season or the cycle of the year. And go back, a prime example, the Ashango bone, right? The Ashango bone will fall under the archaeoastronomy, the Ashango bone. That's what that was used during that time period. And this was discovered in Africa, in the southern part of Africa. Okay. All right. So that's an example of archaeoastronomy. Okay. The Ashango bone. Now let's look at ethnoastronomy. Ethnoastronomy in turn is the branch of astronomy concerned with the astronomical beliefs and practices of specific culture. Within its broader formulation, the discipline of cultural astronomy has roots going back hundreds of years, though the term itself was first used in the late 1980s. Okay, scholars trace the discipline to Athanasius Ketcher, who worked to understand the time-keeping device of the ancient world. Okay, later Chris Dupuis studied the astronomical symbolism found in religions and Sir Norman Lockyer measure alignments of ancient structures such as the Egyptian pyramids to celestial bodies. Okay. Now, so as you can see, that's the article, that's the introduction, right? Now let's go down. Let's go down to where it says advancing cultural astronomy in South Africa. All right, excuse me. So cultural astronomy in South Africa encompasses a range of projects from the history of astronomy and the study of South African astronomers to archaeology, folklore, art history, and interdisciplinary pursuits such as gender and indigenous studies, right? So it says modern astronomy and astrophysics in South Africa began with the establishment of the South African Astronomical Observatory and Observatory of the Cape of Good Hope in 1820. The history of South African Astronomical Observatory has been studied in some detail, but this is not the case with Bowden Observatory near Beaufontein, right, and other observatories across South Africa. Let me see. All right, studies of indigenous South African astronomy include broad overviews and compiling information found in historical records and early ethnographies, such as the Bleak and Lloyd collection. All right. So it says very little research is being done on the indigenous astronomical knowledge of past and present South African cultures. Okay. To advance cultural astronomy in South Africa, the Oxford X conference introduced South Africans to archaeoastronomical techniques used to analyze ancient sites throughout the country, as well as interpreting astronomical symbolism and rock art and artifacts. Okay. Examples were present from other parts of the world where similar projects are being undertaken. Okay, so these include Peru, Hungary, and Mesoamerica. All right. And it says these examples demonstrate a deep understanding of ancient people, their lives, their religion, and the artifacts and structures connected to their knowledge and use of the night sky. All right. So studies of people living today included example from North America and emerging unpublished research in South Africa. These examples emphasizes the time, care, and difficulty involved with conducting ethnographic work with living cultures to record their knowledge correctly and appropriately. All right. The different studies show what is possible for studies within South Africa and focus on South African people. Attracting more young people to the field is key to advancing cultural astronomy within South Africa. Only a handful of undergraduate, postgraduate students attended the conference. Many more are needed. All right. All right, then. So now going further down, it says astronomy and indigenous knowledge in South Africa. It said through the National Research Foundation, the South African government has financially supported the discipline of indigenous knowledge systems and astronomy. The NRF estimated budget for indigenous knowledge system for 2016-2017 was $15,300,000 ZAR. Okay. On a much larger scale, astronomy and space sciences is allocated 104,900,000 ZAR. These large financial communities indicate the importance of these areas of research and scholarship to South Africans. All right. So it says official definition of indigenous knowledge appeared in 2014 IKS bill. It says indigenous knowledge means tangible and intangible aspects of the whole body of knowledge that has been held, used, refined, and transmitted by the indigenous communities collectively or as individual custodians of such knowledge as part of expressing their cultural identities, and includes but is not limited to knowledge of and management of biological resources and ecosystem, literary, performing, and artistic works, arts and culture, all items of movable cultural property, all items of immovable cultural property, indigenous institution, philosophies, governance, matters, and languages, scientific, technical, and spiritual knowledge, indigenous environmental resources, and indigenous communities' heritage, right? So indigenous knowledge systems refer to a combination of knowledge system encompassing technology, cosmology, spiritual, social, economic, and philosophical learning and educational, legal, and governance systems, which manifest as indigenous knowledge, indigenous cultural expression, and indigenous knowledge associated with the utilization of natural resources. Okay. So it goes on to say it is in the NRF IKS document that IKS and astronomy is listed as one of the areas covered by their indigenous knowledge systems funding instrument. Thus, in terms of government funding support, it would appear that this would be an ideal NRF unit to apply to for grants with the potent combination of astronomy and indigenous knowledge systems. However, there is the speculation, or I can't even get the word out, excuse me. However, there is the speculation that each grant proposal under IKS has a co-investigator that is a recognized indigenous knowledge holder. This is a stumbling block for many cultural astronomy projects. There remains the option of situating future projects in the humanistic and social science within NRF, emphasizing links to anthropology, art, history, folklore, etc., rather than IKS if a knowledge holder cannot be recruited. All right, so, and as you can see, there's the conclusion. So the conclusion says that cultural astronomy has deep historical roots, but remains a new endeavor in South Africa. Africa has not been overlooked in cultural astronomy literature, okay? But active research remains focused on Europe and the Americas. All right, so to advance the field of cultural astronomy in South Africa, research students funding and mentors are needed as outlined above. Funding could be obtained through the National Research Foundation. Also, the international scholars that attended to the IC Ford X conference can also help with mentoring South African students. The IC Ford X conference helped lay a foundation by hosting workshops for students and school teachers and exposing South Africans to the many different types of projects that fall within the cultural astronomy rubric. The initial groundwork has been laid, attracting students and new researchers to undertake projects in the next goal. All right, so, and these are the references right here at the bottom of the page. Okay, these are the references. It's very important. All right, just keep a lookout on the reference. All right, so again, that's this article, The Astronomy, Indigenous Knowledge and Interpretation, Advancing Studies of Cultural Astronomy in South Africa by Jarita Holbrook. Okay. All right, so excuse me for stumbling over the words or whatnot. I don't read it like that, but I just wanted to be able to go over the reading materials with you guys so you guys can be able to, the information is there. You can see it for yourself. All right. So let's look at what this person put: survival strategies for African American astronomers and astrophysics. Now let's check this out real quick. Okay, before I go on to the next thing. Okay, so real quick. All right, so as you can see, this is the abstract. What the abstract say: the question of how to increase the number of women and minorities in astronomy has approached from several directions in the United States. All right, so it's written by J.C. Holbrook. Okay. The question of how to increase the number of women and minority in astronomy has been approached from several directions in the United States, including examination of admission policies, mentoring, and hiring practices. These points to departmental efforts to improve conditions for some of the students which has the overall benefit of improving conditions for all of the students. However, women and minority astronomers have managed to obtain doctorates even within the non-welcoming environment of certain astronomy and physics departments. Okay, so right here it says African American history in astronomy. Since 1955, only 40 African Americans have earned doctorates in astronomy, astrophysics, or physics doing an astronomy dissertation. Considering the American Astronomical Society has 7,000 members and the Bureau of Labor Statistics lists 1,500 employed astronomers, depending upon which number you consider to be a true estimate of the number of astronomers, and considering that 3 African Americans astronomers are deceased, then African Americans make up 2.47% or 0.53% of the PhDs. Wow. The statistics given by the Nelson survey of the top 40 astronomy departments in the USA show that 1% of the faculty are African Americans, which is 6 faculty out of 594 faculty for 2007. Other minorities found in the Nelson survey are 1.2% for Hispanic faculty, which is 7 faculty, and 7.1% for Asian faculty, which is 42 faculty. Increasing the number of women and minorities in astronomy has been a goal for more than 30 years. 94 women faculty out of 594 are part of the 2007 survey, which is 15.8%. And then it goes on to say that the American Astronomical Society has attempted to address this imbalance through the creation of a women's group, right, which is the Committee on the Status of Women, and a minority group within AAS, Committee on the Status of Minorities, right? Each of these has a newsletter that is freely available online that includes quantitative and qualitative studies about women and minorities in astronomy. Right? So these groups are meant to provide support for these minority astronomers, and the newsletter are to share the latest research and opinions about diversifying astronomy. Okay? So check this out. Approaches to studying African American success in the sciences has focused on the students as empty vessels which need to be filled with something that they are lacking, such as stronger math preparation, taking physics in secondary school, and completing a research project. All right. My approach has been to consider African American success in astronomy as successfully navigating astronomy culture through framing it as a cross-cultural experience. All right. Moreover, as two cultures coming together with elements that conflict with each other, disciplinary cultures in academia have been explored by social scientists for some decades, and studies of the cultures of scientists in the United States and other parts of the world have increased with the creation of department focusing on the history and philosophy of science and technology studies. Thus, this idea of astronomy culture is consistent with these studies of other academic cultures. Okay. The issue with my cross-cultural approach is that African American culture is not monolithic. There are class, regional, occupational, and familial differences. Thus, the cultural conflicts experienced by individual African American students would differ from student to student. All right, so Chavez put makes sense as to why cultural astronomy is so less known, because we are barely represented in the field and they feel like we don't know shit. You said it. You put the nail on the coffin right there. You put the nail on the coffin, Cavius. You put the nail on the coffin. That's what it is. We are on the keyword. You said the keyword underrepresented. 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 So when you underrepresented, guess what? Cultural astronomy and cultural anthropology does not make a significant difference in the mainstream. I'm gonna say that again. When you are underrepresented, cultural astronomy and cultural anthropology would not make a difference. or it would not be that much of a significance because you are underrepresented. There you go. You said it. You said it right there. You said the key word, underrepresented. Or, well, you say barely represented, but basically underrepresented. That's all it is. When you have underrepresentation, these fields don't really come about. They don't really come into existence as much unless it's benefiting the pockets of those individuals who want to control the narrative, who want to dictate the historical facts, etc. If they want to control the narrative, yeah, it benefits. It ain't benefiting their pocket, then they don't care too much for it. Yep. Just give me a moment, you guys. All right, I'm back. So now let's look at where it says culture shock. Okay. Just let's look at culture shock for a moment. It says culture shock is defined as sense of confusion and uncertainty, sometimes with feeling of anxiety that may affect people exposed to an alien culture or environment without adequate preparation. And similarly, as a state of bewilderment and distress experienced by an individual who is suddenly exposed to a new, strange, or foreign social and cultural environment. The literature on cultural shock focuses on cross-cultural encounters, whereas I am considering it for intracultural encounters. The encounter with astronomy culture without examining specific events, individual agency, or external events. Culture shock posits that an individual will go through a cycle of positive and negative feelings towards a new culture that is predictable. Okay. All right, so culture shock was first formulated by the anthropologist Jarita Holbrook. He described the four stages of culture shock as the honeymoon phase, the negotiation phase, the adjustment phase, and the mastery phase. The most anxiety and unhappiness occurs during the negotiation and the adjustment phases. The negotiation phase has to do with learning to communicate, adjusting to new cultural norms, and as a result, having feelings of loneliness and homesickness. Okay, the adjustment phase concerns building new strategies and problem solving techniques to navigate the new culture as well as language acquisition. The new culture begins to make sense during this phase until mastery phase, the phase where the new culture is now normal. There is still anxiety that can be prolonged as long as the feeling or of not understanding the culture remains. All right. So let's see. Let's look at the 6 survival strategies. Okay, 6 survival strategy, broader relevance. So once formulated, the 6 survival strategies were sent to various African American astronomers and some women astronomers, and I collected their feedback. The women astronomers commented that these strategies applied to them as well, and to others that they knew African American astronomers provide details of which strategies that they use. Next, the 6 survival strategies were presented to a group of aspiring Black South African students in Cape Town in fall of 2010. They provided feedback on which strategies they were already using to navigate astronomy culture. In summary, the 6 survival strategies have been validated by individual astronomers either as strategies that they use or that they have seen used by others. Therefore, the 6 survival strategies are relevant beyond the African American community, extending to major students, women, and international contexts. Check this out. So the first one is being oblivious. A person who tends to be oblivious to what is happening around them is one of the survival strategies. To be completely aware of racist and sexist undertones and tones is an effective strategy for surviving in a hostile environment. Right? It says this could be an unintended strategy with a biological cause, such as a form of Asperger's syndrome, or it could be a behavior learned early on to ignore negative social interaction in favor of focusing exclusively on schoolwork. Okay. The second one is strong familial support. A family that is supported can great students who are experiencing hardship as astronomy students. Family members can serve as a personal cheering session for the student, reminding them that their family believe in them and believe that they can do astronomy, survive astronomy, and become astronomer. All right. Family members can also provide financial support that they may allow the student to study full time. They are preparing for their qualifying exam. However, most acknowledge that it is the emotional support rather than the financial support provided by their families that is the most important. Okay. The astronomy culture found in the United States is such that family is considered to be a distraction from doing astronomy. Having a family, unless you are a man with a partner who is the primary caregiver, is perceived negatively. The connection that minority students have with their family is considered negatively as well. Minority students are encouraged to move away from their family, indicating that within astronomy, the support provided by family is not acknowledged, nor is recognition given to the fact that such families produce the students who are now in astronomy. Therefore, they must have been doing something right. All right, so the third one is strong mental support. A mentor who believes that student is capable of succeeding and help them to succeed can help a student survive the most hostile environment. Similar to familial support, the mentor becomes a cheering session for the student. A mentor who is an astronomer who will actually say to other faculty in their department, you cannot treat my student this way, is every minority student's dream. Such a strong mentor who is willing to stand up for the rest of their department can transform a hostile environment by their action, by forcing the hostile fashions to not be blatant about their hostility. Ideally, students want the entire department to support them and believe in them, but just one person can compensate for this lag. All right. The fourth one is divinely inspired. In many ways, religion is a taboo subject in astronomy. Some will argue that the creative design debate has made this more so the case. Nonetheless, minority students feel that they are studying astronomy because it is their calling. All right. I.e., is the reason that they were put on Earth and born at this moment in time and space. Doing astronomy or being an astronomer could be more or less divine in their mind. For example, thinking that they have a gift for doing astronomy, to feeling or believing that the gods want them to become an astronomer for some divine purpose. Some level of divine purpose gives students a resilience needed to survive being an astronomy student. Thus, when bad things happen, such as racist encounters or simply facing challenging new material, those that are divinely inspired knows that the racists cannot deter them from an astronomer and know that they are destined to master the material. Okay, so the fifth one is disconnect. A student may have the point of view that the environment that they are experiencing in graduate school or as college student is not the same as the environment that they will eventually be working in as an astronomer. The immediate culture may be so foreign, hostile, and strange that they feel no connection and thus consider themselves to be above the fray. These people are weird, and I am not really one of them. This is probably the equivalent of full-blown culture shock, where the new culture is too strange, foreign, and repulsive to engage. In response, their education then becomes a transaction of goods and services rather than an acquisition process. They learn astronomy rather than how to be an astronomer. They are in survival mode where where the process of getting a PhD becomes something to get through as quickly as possible. This disconnect allows them to distance themselves and thus be less impacted by a hostile environment. The haters cannot drive me out of astronomy. That's a good one. All right. And so the last one, she put therapy and medication. Getting an advanced degree can be extremely stressful experience, and there is 6 ways to survive. Therapy with or without chemical intervention. Asking professors today how graduate students in their generation dealt with the stress, many revealed that they drank a lot of alcohol, a form of self-medication. Many graduate students in all disciplines today end up on antidepressant. However, if being divinely inspired is a taboo discussion, then being on antidepressant falls into another magnitude of taboo. Nonetheless, therapy has provided a positive and safe venue for some African American astronomy students to discuss their struggles with someone who's neither is judgmental or disbelieving. All right. So, again, so this is her article, okay, and this is the survival strategies for African American astronomers and astrophysics. So let me read it again for you guys that missed out. Being oblivious, strong family support, strong departmental support, divinely inspired, disconnect, and therapy and medication, okay? All right, so those are the survival strategy. And you know what? And I'm glad that she spoke about divine support, okay? Because, and family support as well, because a lot of us, we don't come from families that's into the scientific knowledge or that would deal with these type of subject matters, okay? We don't come from that, so a lot of our family don't really understand this level. However, but if you have support systems that say, hey, if you want to go there, we can make it happen for you, okay? However, in our community, we use a lot of science. We use a lot of scientific knowledge and don't even know it. There's science all around us every day, either whether we out here doing something productive or something that's counterproductive, right? We using science. Well, Tiffany, what do you mean by that? Well, when when people work on cars and transmission, all that, that's mechanical engineering. When people double dutch, hopscotch, and all that stuff, that's mathematics. When you rolling dice, shooting crabs, silos, and all that, that's mathematics. And then let's go on a little deeper level. Let's just go a little deep, okay? When you're doing illegal activity, right? When you're making your little products, what I'm saying? When you're making products that you want to, you sell to your customers on the street. For those of you know who I'm talking about, the whole, that industry, right? When you into the underground industry, okay? You making products on the stove and stuff. That's chemistry. That's chemistry because you learn a chemical reaction, all right? You dealing with chemical reaction right then and there. So we use a lot of scientific knowledge every single day. It's all around us. We just either we are aware of it or we are unaware of it. Okay? So it's there. We got it in us. Believe it or not. But when she said divine support, that is very true because, and I guess people feed off this concept that there's not as many religious people or people that's in this Abrahamic religion practice that are in the scientific field, and that's not necessarily true because you'll see there's a number of people who are Muslim, Christian, and Jews that are in the STEM program. All right, and they probably outnumber those who are atheists. Okay, so yes, religion can become a taboo topic as of today. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's things that are very inconsistent and they are not agreeable because people who see religion, they're not seeing it from the interpretation standpoint of it. They looking at it from the political, from the concrete. All right. And that could be problematic because whoever is behind the religion ideology or whoever enforcing that particular religious belief, they might use it for their own benefits. So when people start blaming folks and say that, oh, religion is a bad thing, this thing, other, okay, we can make that argument. It messes up humanity, yeah, but guess what? Religion is only a blueprint. At the end of the day, it's about the psychology of the individual that's more important, not just the blueprint. Because whether you call yourself a Muslim, Christian, or Jew, whatever, at the end of the day, it's your psychology that matters the most. And so that's another thing. People got to study neurotheology. Like I said, I'm going to get into that topic about neurotheology one day, get on that subject, because that's another subject I want to focus on too. I got plenty of books on that, but yeah, having that divine support, whether you are into Abrahamic religion, or if you are into the ATR, and ATR stands for African Traditional Religion, or if you're in any type of Eastern philosophy such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Jainism, or whatever, if you into those type of Eastern philosophy, when you have those support system, right, and you stay connected and you stay, those things help keep you disciplined. You know what I'm saying? It help keeps you focused. So everybody don't want to get into atheism. All right. Everybody don't want to be an atheist. You know what I'm saying? And everybody that's in the scientific field are not atheists. And it's funny when atheists say things like, oh, well, science say this, science say that. Okay, you use science as a religion, but little do you know that those who are in the scientific fields or who study these scientific knowledge, they're not atheists. And then when you try to use scientists, everybody don't subscribe it or see it from your standpoint. Like, I always give an example. Albert Einstein believed in God, okay, but he didn't believe in the God of the religious sense. He believed in God from a pantheistic point of view. So somebody who's a pantheist is someone who see God and the universe as being one, as one and intertwined, okay? So he was an astrophysicist. He was a physicist, right? He was a physicist, but he believed in the concept of God, okay? He sat down with people that was spiritual, that was in the spiritual culture. David Bohm done sat down with Jaddu Krishnamurti. Jaddu Krishnamurti was a spiritual philosopher. He was Indian, okay? And David Bohm was a physicist. You'll be surprised, a lot of physicists, not nobody that's astrophysicist, not somebody that's a cosmologist or astronomers, but people who are just physicists alone. Just the physicists alone, they actually sit down with people who are studying Buddhism, who are studying Taoism. They sit down and have conversation with those who are in spiritual schools of thoughts. This is, it sounds strange to me. It's strange, but that's what they do. It's like, it seems like the physicists are really interested in studying about spirituality and consciousness. But it's like, if you're a physicist, don't you study things from a physical standpoint and not abstract? Don't you deal with things from a concrete? You would think that's what a physicist deal with, something that's from a concrete and from a physical matter standpoint, and not something that's totally abstract, right? But they do. A lot of them do. A lot of them even try to study the concept about consciousness. They trying to find a correlation between consciousness and neuroscience. It's still an ongoing research to this day. They trying to understand there is a God. Who is God? How do you determine God? These are physicists asking questions. And then you got Carl Sagan, who was a physicist, but he was into spirituality. He studied spirituality, and he even had conversation with those who were into the spiritual system. Okay, but so the point that I'm getting at is, when we sit here and think that scientists are not dealing with cultural interpretation, cultural practices, that's when we are mistaken. That's when we are very mistaken. And the reason why we're mistaken, because as Travis mentioned earlier, right, we're not getting the representation. That's the problem. When you have a lot of underrepresentation taking place in the scientific fields, then subjects like cultural anthropology or astronomy, right, are going to be undermined and overlooked because you don't have enough representation in those fields. period. Okay. Let me give you guys the book. So I'm not gonna really go over the book or whatever, but if you guys want to read it for yourself, you can. I went over enough reading materials. All right. So this person has a book called African Cultural Astronomy. Okay. African Cultural Astronomy. Okay, and it's written by Jarita Holbrook. All right. R. Thebe Ndupe and Johnson O. Yorama. All right. So the name of the book is called African Cultural Astronomy. All right. So I'm going to leave it here. Make sure you jot it down, write it down or whatever. Matter of fact, I'm going to type it in the chat for you guys and y'all can look this book up yourself. Okay. So yeah, make sure you guys look that book up. All right. All right then. Well, so that's all I have for the evening on this subject about African cultural astronomy and the author or the person in the title, Dr. Jarita Holbrook. You can find out more information about this individual on YouTube, right? Just type in the name Jarita Holbrook, okay? If you type it in YouTube, you will see the lectures and video done by this individual. It seemed to be very amazing. As a matter of fact, give me a second. All right, let me. All right, so there's the name of this channel. All right, this channel is called Cultural Astronomy Channel. So I think you guys should check out the channel. It's called Cultural Astronomy Channel. Yeah, let me type it in the chat. And also, I suggest for you guys to check out another channel on YouTube. It's called Closer to Truth. So this channel right here, Closer to the Truth on YouTube, it deals with physics, having a conversation with people who are in the field of cosmology, who are in the fields of cosmology, astrophysics, astronomy, and those who are philosophers and those who are spiritualists. They have conversation about the concept of consciousness, the concept of God. They either talk about universe, skies, etc. So they get into those discussions. So they engage in those conversations. It's pretty deep, and I think that you guys may like it. So yeah, make sure you guys check it out. Closer to the Truth. All right. So yeah. So other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate y'all support. I really appreciate y'all tuning into my channel. Shout out to the chat. Everybody that's in the chat, shout out to everybody that's there. Thank you, everyone. Shout out to Brother Sean, Brother Jehudi, Sister Jelanda, Brother Darren. Let's see, who else? Brother Chavius. So, and Brother Centavo. So Brother Chavius, I heard that you were supposed to be doing a video about the Dogon people. I think, yeah, he said you're gonna be doing a video about the Dogon. So hopefully I can tune in, I can watch. All right, so I can go ahead and watch the video and be able to gain some information from you. So I'll be looking forward to that. All right. Just let me know. So make sure if you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Share the channel, share the videos, check out the content on here, and that's it. All right. Until next time, may peace and power elevation be to all of you. This is your girl Tiffany. And with that being said, I'm getting ready to log off. And take it easy on yourself. All right, deuces, take it easy. Be safe out here in these streets. Be safe as far as your health is concerned. And remember, knowledge is essential. I'm going to say again, knowledge is essential. All right, peace.